and we played a show a week ago. It would have been on the Wednesday, and at that time there was still no conversation about events being cancelled. Things, there was talk of, I guess it feels like we're a couple of weeks behind like some other European countries like France, and the prospect of this actually coming to affect what we did still felt quite distant. But I think it's really been a sort of throughout the course of the week, it's just been sort of on a daily basis, opening one's eyes to how it actually comes in and encroaches into your own world and into what's going on in your life. And suddenly, we were looking at, okay, well, this festival probably isn't going to happen, and then this show probably isn't going to happen, and then our label, we had some interviews last week, and our label said, okay, well, everyone at the label has been sent home. And that's the kind of moment that I thought, wow, this a much bigger beast than perhaps we thought it would be. Because I think with these sorts of things, there's always a tendency to feel that this is happening to someone else, somewhere else in the world, and because of that, you're able to sort of slightly remove yourself from it and just sort of keep your head down and get on with what's going on in your life and where you live. But over the past few days, that's just slowly becoming not possible. It's really encroached into our realities. And when it came around to Monday, my girlfriend, all her studies were cancelled. So yesterday, I put her on a coach back to the West Country where her parents live, and she was very emotional. And I think that what she was experiencing, I kind of experienced that. And I think until that point, I was managing to be very pragmatic about it and to say, it is what it is. Everyone's suffering. We've all just got to find our coping mechanisms. And but then when I actually saw her emotional reaction, I think that was the first time that actually it sort of affected me on an emotional level. And I thought, okay, well, actually, I'm not sure when I'm going to get to see you. My dad is 70, so I'm being told that it's best to stay away from him. And then my sister has young kids, so they're kind of self-quarantining. So yeah, I think once it starts to come into your inner family circle, that's when it starts to become quite difficult, because they're the people that you normally turn to for that support.
You've already had the one tour cancelled, and now imminently.
And it really is, as you said, we had to move it once last year because of, me getting unwell. And I mean, we couldn't have predicted this. This has never happened to us in 15 years. I mean, we've never moved a tour, let alone moved it twice. So it's going to be hard. And I suppose I just hope that people will be understanding, and I'm sure they will, because it is happening to everybody. But I think what's difficult is that you can't actually give any indication of when it is that you're going to return. Just chucking a record on, sometimes that can be like the strongest medicine there is. I still think music is stronger than any antibiotic, any vaccine that anyone's invented. It has a way of reflecting back whatever we need in life, whether that's something to channel our anger, to soothe us, to comfort, to articulate what we're feeling, to channel whatever it is that's going on in our lives.
So just regards to the album then, A Billion Heartbeats, I know that there's a sort of a more heightened political element to it, protests going on around Trafalgar Square, stuff like that. Is that right? Is that
That's
fair?
right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right. So the building that I'm living in at the moment, so the tram shed where the studio is also my home, and it's a property guardian space. So it's really another way of finding affordable living, in a city. And I think at the time that I became a property guardian, I was feeling slightly out of love with London. I felt that spaces for artists, were becoming fewer and fewer, and people were being pushed further and further out. Lots of friends were leaving town, moving to places like Brighton, to Margate, to Hastings, just trying to find affordable living spaces. And I thought, well, I'm kind of right on the edge of leaving. And then I thought, well, what about doing property guarding? Because I'd always been aware of the scheme. Why not just get in touch and to see what's available? And they said, well, actually, come on down. We've got a viewing today. And I went down to look at this space, and it was it was a whole floor of an office building overlooking Strand, and it ran the length of a whole block on the Strand. So it was like the size of probably a 5-a-side football pitch. Me and my girlfriend at the time just said, we'll take it. I saw this immediately as an opportunity to not only experience London in a way that I'd probably never get to experience it again, but also I immediately kind of saw the creative potential, because it was a space that I could live in, I could work in, I could exist. Thought, well, what about making a record about what's going on in the world around me? Because our last record, Curve the Earth, was quite an inward-looking album. And I thought, well, actually, in this record, what I want to do is I want to turn the lens the other way. Not even I wanted to, it just felt that at that time it was impossible not to, because it was the end of 2016 when I moved into that space, and obviously we just had the EU referendum. Trump had got into office, and it was just the beginning of, the craziness of the last 4 years, really. And I'd never really been particularly engaged in politics, but I never particularly felt politically engaged. I never really felt that my opinion was worth anything. But then I discovered protests. I started attending protests around the end of that year because, like I said, it was the year of the referendum, and so there was, I think, one of the first marches was the first People's Vote March, and because I was on the Strand is obviously like one of the main arteries to Trafalgar Square, which is the home of protests in this country for the last 100 years, and these protests would come past my front window every Saturday morning. So I'd come down and I'd join them, really as a means of educating myself and to see what people were feeling, as a kind of barometer of what people were angry about, what people felt passionate about. I think for a lot of people, protests are where they go to shout and to sing, and it's a place where they feel empowered to do so, and I think that's fantastic. For me, it became a place to listen. It became a place to go and listen to what was going on, and I felt that I very much was looking for an alternative to the media narrative on whatever it was, be it shortage of NHS beds, be it, for example, like Free Tommy Robinson. So I use these protests really as a way of kind of tapping into what I considered to be some of the most important conversations of the day. And the songs on the record were each inspired by things I saw and chants I heard on those protests. So A Billion Heartbeats is a song about Grenfell. It's a song about the way that the communities came together in the wake of Grenfell, and the resilience that those communities showed, and the way that I think London actually really came together, and in the wake of such a huge loss of life, the city did come together and somehow managed to heal itself. And I think we're seeing that again now. And I think that song, I think perhaps equally could be applied to what's going on now. And I think we always need reminding of how resilient we can be. And when we see ourselves as a whole, as opposed to, separate entities or divided in our politics or in our generation, whether it's like, it's Gen Z versus the boomers, it's Gen X, all these different sort of human constructs which we put up, ultimately all they serve to do is to divide us. And that's perpetuated by the media, by social media. And I think what that song is very much trying to do is remind us of our oneness. And it sounds very kind of hippy dippy, But I think in times like this, we do need reminding that we are all, we're more powerful together. So that really is what that song's about.